Legend tells of a plucky young truck driver from Canada with a passion for film walking into a boardroom of 20th Century Fox, wowing producers with the concept of a sequel to their hit film Alien. The powers that be were unsure of how to approach the follow-up, and this young man, named James Cameron, became their guiding light. Alien, he wrote on the board, causing eyes to gaze upward in curiosity. It was followed by the letter S, implying multiple aliens for this next potential blockbuster. And then, the master stroke, a vertical line through the S, the sign of the dollar, of big, big money. Then everybody clapped. The sequel was a go. It's a good story, sure, and although recently Cameron did actually confirm this dollar sign pitch as true, there was a much longer road to aliens than a single meeting. It was a process taking place over many meetings throughout many years. The young, up-and-coming director had been making a name for himself during his time working with Roger Corman, his own works, including an Alien knockoff titled Xenogenesis, and a compelling script making the rounds in the early 1980s. This script was known as The Terminator. J.W. Rinsler's book, The Making of Aliens, describes James Cameron's meetings with Aliens producers David Giler and Walter Hill after having been very impressed with the Terminator screenplay. "They came to me to do a futuristic updating of Spartacus in outer space," Cameron said. "They wanted the same movie, but with the sword and sandal elements intergalactically dressed up, which was a concept I found pretty idiotic. I wanted to do a fundamentally different story told in primarily science fiction terms. We weren't seeing eye to eye, I could tell by their sagging expressions. But they had read my script, and they wanted to work with me on something. I was getting up and making my way toward the door, and David said, 'Well, we do have this other thing.' And I said, 'Oh, what's that?' He said, 'Alien 2. And all those pinball lights and bells went off inside my head, but I maintained an absolutely straight face and said, 'That could be interesting.' I felt like David was digging out an old bone in the backyard, dragging out something no one had been thinking much about." Cameron stayed to discuss with Giler and Hill their ideas for the sequel. It was apparent that the young writer knew Alien intimately. "He probably knows the first one better than I do, backwards and forwards," Giler said. "I suggested that I write a quick outline or treatment," Cameron said, "just to give them an idea of what I might do with it." Giler and Hill agreed and handed over their 5-page treatment as a starting point, or they may have given Cameron only the 1-page summary. "They didn't really give me anything specific," Cameron said in 1986. "Just this idea of getting Ripley together with some military types and having them all go back to the planet. So I raced home and stayed up for 3 days straight and drank about 8 pots of coffee. When I'm writing, I have a period of assimilation where I absorb everything I do with a project. For Aliens, I read a lot of books on Vietnam because of the strong military storyline." He expanded on Hill and Giler's concept, which was sometimes referred to as Ripley and the Soldiers. "But I really adapted a story I'd already written, called Mother," Cameron said, of a treatment he'd written circa 1980-81. "Right after my meeting with David and Walter, I pulled something out of my files that had been inspired by Alien. It was originally titled E.T., but when I found out that a guy named Spielberg was making his own movie called E.T., I changed the title to Mother, and I dropped Ripley and a bunch of Marines into it." The result was Cameron's 45-page treatment for Alien 2, the outline of the film which secured the confidence of Giler and Hill and ultimately became the film we all know and love, Aliens. I wanted to take a closer look at this treatment for today's video and see just how close it was to the final film. This treatment is dated September 21st, 1983, and this version has long been widely available for Aliens fans to view. From the earliest days of Laserdisc to the high-def anthology Blu-ray collection, it has always seemed to make its way to the home media special features for the film. One important note, however, is that there is actually an even earlier version of this treatment dated September 8th, 1983. This preliminary treatment is about 5 pages longer with a tongue-in-cheek tagline, "All this and Alien 2. It contains a few extra moments, with a standout being a scene with Ripley and Hicks pursuing Xenobiologist notes inside the colony, which was criticized by some executives as being too clunky and expository. Thus, it was omitted from the final official treatment. Regardless, what we're left with is a fascinating look at aliens in utero, a rough sketch that would become a masterwork. It's familiar in many ways, surprisingly different in others. So let's take a look. This is Alien 2. Fade in. Space. silent and endless. A tiny ship of technology drifts through the frigid vacuum, the Narcissus, lifeboat of the Nostromo. A shadow passes over, and an enormous black object cuts into the frame above. Searchlights play over the tiny craft. The hull nose down, descends. Interior, Narcissus, dark and dormant as a crypt. Like the tolling of a bell, a metallic clang echoes through the hull. The camera wanders through the cluttered interior, coming to a rest on a hypersleep capsule, its transparent canopy opaque with dust. A light on the capsule control panel begins to flash. Several macro angles as indicators light up. The monitor reads, "Contact alert, auto-revival sequence." Light seeps into the room as a cutting torch showers sparks from the airlock door. The torch saws an irregular rectangle, and the door falls inward. Figures enter, backlit, ominous. Men in bio-isolation suits carrying equipment and handlights approach the capsule. A gloved hand wipes at the dust. From inside the capsule, the beam of a light stabs inward, illuminating a woman's face in peaceful repose. Warrant Officer Ripley, sole survivor of the Nostromo. Her eyes move beneath the lids, indicating a dream state. She winces, as if in pain or fear. Transition, Nostromo corridor. Ripley running madly down the passageway, terrified, clutching a flamethrower. Light strobes. She runs blindly, panting intensely, verging on hysteria. Corridor after corridor. Reality short-circuiting. Her eyes are wide as she rounds a corner, unable to look but transfixed, almost paralyzed. A hatch, lit garishly by the strobe flashes, a huge hydraulic structure. An oven, a bank vault, a crypt. An airlock? Ripley, moving toward it hypnotically. Drawn by an inexorable fixation, she touches a button. The door begins to open. Every nerve screams, "Run!" The open hatchway. Blackness within. Something inside that she has to confront. Something she knows is more terrifying than she can imagine. Within the darkness, a silhouetted shape rises with slow, inhuman grace. Ripley's flamethrower spews white light. Transition. Ripley. Her scream subsides. She's in a darkened hospital room, alone. She looks around, blinking, bathed in sweat. A monitor flickering on above Ripley with the image of a female medtech who asks if she is okay. Ripley nods. Medtech. That dream again? Ripley nods yes, then asks to see Dr. O'Neill. Transition. Dr. O'Neill reminds Ripley that she has been back on Earth Satellite Station Beta only a few days and that her weakness and disorientation are natural side effects of the extended time in hypersleep. He explains that the capsules were never intended to operate numerous years and that Ripley is lucky to have survived after drifting for so long. Even though she is physically unchanged, 60 years have passed. Ripley remains shaken, withdrawn. Ripley. They say you're not supposed to dream in the freezer, but I did. The same fucking nightmare for 60 years. Changing the subject, the doctor mentions that her daughter has been located, living in Oregon. Ripley. Is she coming? O'Neill. She's 70 years old. She can't travel easily. Perhaps you should go see her when you're released. He smiles. We are putting another patient in with you. The medtech enters, carrying a large orange tomcat. Ripley. Jones. Ripley grabs the cat like a life preserver. O'Neill suggests she try to sleep so she'll be fresh for the hearing in the morning. Transition. Vid phone room, satellite station Beta. The medtech helps Ripley place a vid phone call to her daughter. The conversation is short and devastating. Ripley remembers her daughter as a bright 10-year-old living with her ex-husband before her last trip out. She is unprepared to see an arthritically crippled old woman who icily accuses her of abandoning her when she chose her life in space. Even after 60 years, the pain and loss well forth, and the image of Ripley unchanged by the years only triggers hatred in the old woman. Ripley clicks off. Corridors. They pass through the medical complex that, although technologically advanced even beyond Ripley's time, still reeks of hospital oppressiveness. O'Neill leads her to the man-made landscaped atrium, bounded to the buildings in the complex. Ripley sits under a tree in the morning sun, watching Jones chase birds. She survived when the others didn't. She came back to feel the grass again, but it seems a hollow triumph. The terror and emptiness remain. She cries silently. A distant thunder booms, and Ripley glances up through the view transome to see the sun-hot exhaust of a commercial shuttle leaping skyward from the launch field a few kilometers away. She stares at it, transfixed. Transition. Interior. ICC boardroom. A lower echelon investigator for the Interstellar Commerce Commission, an extrasolar colonial administration security officer, an insurance investigator, and a representative of the conglomerate that has since acquired Weyland-Yutani Corporation, owners of the Nostromo, convened to find out what happened to the ship 60 years ago. On a wall-sized vidscreen, they review the files. Ripley watches as the smiling faces of the dead crew flash before them in mugshots. Dallas, Kane, Parker, Brett, Lambert, and the traitor, Ash. The ICC investigator reports that analysis of the Narcissus flight recorder, which accessed the Nostromo's computer, clearly showed that Ripley used command override to deliberately blow the engines, despite the fact that there was no structural damage or impairment of the function previous to the destruct order. The corporate representative asserts that no record of the Nostromo's covert mission to investigate the alleged alien could be found, since storage limitations require a purging of low-priority data over 50 years old. He concludes that such a mission would have been a highly unlikely assignment for a commercial towing vessel with a 200 million-ton return-leg payload. In addition, no physical evidence of the so-called hostile life form could be found in the shuttle to corroborate Ripley's report. Ripley shows a little of her previous hard-boiled nature as she responds to their skepticism. She reiterates the ferocious attack of the alien and the fact that when she escaped in the shuttle, the rest of the crew was already dead. They ask her to wait in the corridor while a decision on her case is reached. Corridor. Ripley talks glumly with O'Neill. About to release her, he wonders how she will make her way. Ripley reviews her situation. A little money, 50 years of compound interest on her savings minus the effect of inflation. No possibility of work since her experience and technological qualifications are out of date, even if they do let her go out again. O'Neill mentions that most commercial ships are almost fully automated now, and the crews were laid off years before. He offers to help her find a cheap apartment on Beta. She shrugs. Interior, ICC boardroom. Skeptical of Ripley's wild story, the board revokes her commercial license, permanently grounding her. She is released on her own recognizance with a 6-month psychometric probation, including monthly review by a health department SciTech. The extrasolar colonial administration officer points out that there has been a thriving colony on the very planetoid which she claims harbored this deadly form. No trace of an extraterrestrial ship with a powerful warning beacon was reported, and in fact the planetoid was lifeless until humanized and set up shop. Ripley again tries to warn them. Follows the ECA officer down the hall. Trying to detach from this crazy woman, he patiently explains that a standard Class C mining and terraforming colony was dropped on the planetoid 30 years earlier. 50 families, 10 TRW atmosphere processors, 1 K-Hall General Products starship, dismantled to form colony buildings and power stations. At last check-in, they were doing quite nicely, thank you very much. The planetoid's air was getting breathable, and the colony was expanding. Ripley warns him that those families may be in great danger, but he enters an elevator, and the doors close in her face. Transition. Planetoid Acheron. The colony. A bleak, hideous, storm-blasted landscape. The ugly little planet has been an anonymous alphanumeric on the star charts until the first survey team christened it Acheron, after the frozen swamp at the center of the 9th circle of Dante's Hell. With stubborn optimism, characteristic of hardy frontier types throughout history, the people of the colony ECA/C486 call their little community Hadley's Hope, after one of the founding members. That's what the sign set in concrete pylons between the landing field and the main complex reads, or would, at least, if gale force winds hurling rain laced with carbonic acid hadn't corroded the paint off of it. The terraforming stations dotted around the planetoid have succeeded in warming and oxygenating the atmosphere sufficiently so that closed spacesuits are no longer required. Near the equator, where the colony is located, it is usually above freezing. Unfortunately, the terraforming plants create almost perpetual nasty weather, the birth pains of a new ecosystem. The colonists have so far achieved a state of continuous freezing rain. A cluster of bunker-like metal and concrete buildings is connected by conduits and tunnels. It looks like a cross between an industrial frontier town and Krupp's munitions works. Every structure is made uglier by corrosion. Neon signs throw garish colors across the vault-like walls, advertising bars and other businesses. Huge-wheeled tractors, armored and toad-like, crawl through the main street and vanish down rampways to underground garages. Wind howls among the pipes and girders, slashing at anything not tied down. Terraforming station. Beyond the town, across a half-kilometer of barren heath, stands the nearest of the 10 terraforming stations. It resembles a squat, slightly conical smokestack, but on a vastly larger scale. It's a man-made steel volcano, 200 meters high, blasting superheated air straight up into the stratosphere. The rim glows cherry red against the dark sky. Around the base is a complex of pipes and conduits. Interior, central control block. A comtech consults the operations manager about a call on the radio from one of the many independent prospectors roaming the unsurveyed territories. The colonial administration had the prospectors concentrate their efforts in a certain quadrant, and this one says he's found something there. A strong, magnetic profile. He's homing in and wants to know if his claim will be honored because of the directive. The manager's response is laconic. He doesn't know why that stretch of rock is more interesting to the ECA than any other. They didn't tell him, and he doesn't care. As far as he's concerned, the standard 20% contract still applies. Transition. Acheron, in the middle of nowhere. In a tractor, prospector Russ Jordan grins and turns to his wife/partner, Anne. He gloats over the fat, juicy signal as they home in. The tractor roars across corrugated rock onto a plain of volcanic ash sloping up to a vast cinder cone in the distance. In the back seat, their 2 kids play among the heavy sampling of equipment. Newt, the little girl, who is about 6, argues heatedly with her older brother, Tim. Their mother tells them to knock it off as the tractor roars to a stop. "Holy shit," Russ says, awed. They found more than a vein of ore. Directly ahead, a bizarre rounded shape projects upward, recently exposed by the wind. It is the tip of the bone-like extraterrestrial ship recognizable by its biomechanical surface ribs and veins. Jammed against upthrusting rocks by volcanic ash, the hull is buckled in one spot, with a black rent in its side almost large enough to drive the tractor into. Russ and Anne think they've scored big. They pull on exposure suits and head off to take a look. The kids watch from the cab as they disappear inside. Transition. Interior. Tractor. Night. The wind howls around it. Newt sleeps curled up in the driver's seat. Tim wakes her up. He's scared, starting to cry. Mom and Dad didn't come back. Suddenly, a dark form slams against the door. Newt screams. The door is ripped open. Anne, panting and terrified, grabs the dash mic and starts calling, "Mayday! Mayday! Mayday!" Transition. Exterior, extraterrestrial ship. Later. The site is bustling with activity. A score of men with lights and ropes are assembled at the gash in the hull. Newt watches apprehensively from the cab as her mother leads the searchers into the ship. Interior, extraterrestrial ship. Through the biomechanical corridors, they pause briefly to shine their lights over the body of a huge alien, extraterrestrial, not to be confused with the alien. This CT was discovered by the Nostromo's crew 60 years before, fossilized in his command seat. The figure has been half submerged by an inpouring of volcanic ash. Anne shows them where her husband slipped and tumbled down a slanting rib into a vast dark chamber. She says they searched independently for a way out, because visually separated, lost radio contact. An ominous blue energy layer covers the bottom of the egg chamber. Interior, egg chamber. The searchers gear up, fire ram sets into the deck with power guns. Check their radio headsets, rappel down the sloping walls, walk among the 1,000 leathery eggs. Leader, don't touch anything. They spread out across the floor chamber. First searcher, hey, this thing's moving. He watches the top of an egg opening. Second searcher, found him. Another searcher stands over a motionless body face down. Third searcher, all of them are starting to move now. More eggs open, flower-like. The man who found Jordan turns to the body. Something is on his face. We know what it is. So will they in a second. The eggs erupt. 1, 2, 3. Then a volley. Screams are muffled by the face-hugging creatures. All the eggs are hatching. The floor of the chamber comes alive with scuttling spider-hand nightmares. The men above start hauling up the searchers' lifelines. Screams echo, escalate. The chamber is a writhing, living horror. Transition. Interior, Ripley's apartment, Earth Satellite Station Beta. The place is like a motel room with few personal touches. A mess. Dishes in the sink, bed unmade. Ripley, looking haggard, sits quietly at the table in the dining room. The wall screen is on, blaring some vapid drama, but she's not watching. She's studying the view out the window, which consists of the side of another building. Lots of traffic noise, with jet-like whine mixed in. There is a knock at the door. She admits Dr. O'Neill and Lieutenant Gorman of the Colonial Guard. The ECA has lost contact with the colony. Gorman has been ordered to lead a military team to investigate. Will she go along as an attaché/consultant in case the problem is related to her alien? Ripley's vindication is not sweet. She says what anybody who went through what she did on the Nostromo would do. Ripley. Fuck off. Gorman pleads his case, explains that with the new faster ships they can be there in 8 weeks. They'll pick up a combat team from the Colonial Garrison at Gateway Station, a seasoned group used to fighting in harsh environments. This highly armed task force will carry state-of-the-art weaponry, enough firepower to incinerate a planet, and she needn't leave the ship, merely be on hand with any information she can supply from her close experience with the creature. O'Neill offers to take care of Jones. She again refuses and asks them to leave. Before he does, Gorman scribbles his contact number on a sheet of paper. Transition. Ripley awakens from another nightmare. The alien still stalks the corridors of her subconscious. It killed her friends and everything she was or owned. The demon has to be exorcised. The nest burned out. She calls Gorman, wakes him up, agrees to go. He'll pick her up in the morning. In this first section of Cameron's treatment, all of the story beats we see are just about spot on to what we ultimately get in the final film. Ripley is found by salvagers after floating for 57 years, or in this case 60, in space. She's plagued by nightmares of her encounter with the alien. No one believes her story, and her life is left in shambles. But we also learn of the colonization on LV-426, and their own encounters with the species has been made, leading to the company losing contact. Ripley is requested to join a team of Marines to investigate, and eventually agrees. We have our setup. The devil is always in the details, however, and there are of course many differences, some more noticeable than others. One of the standout details here is that we simply don't have the Burke character anywhere in this version. Instead, we have a character named Dr. O'Neill who serves to guide Ripley through this strange new world. O'Neill stays put, offers to take care of Jones while Ripley is away, and we never see him again. He's kind of a throwaway character. So what Cameron was able to do by introducing Burke as a character is not only get someone to be that guide for Ripley and for the audience, easing in some of the exposition, but later adding to the conflict in the story and giving us an antagonist in addition to the aliens. It's very interesting to see how this version of the story plays out when omitting such a character. Admittedly, it still works. There's still much that all these characters have to face that already feels overwhelming. But maybe you'll agree that it feels like just a little something is missing from this story, and maybe the solution to that was indeed Burke. A little extra to stir the pot, to slowly unfold over the course of the film, beginning as a seemingly friendly face to the obnoxious bureaucrat trying to hinder the characters from making the decisions we know they should make, to the complete slimeball revealed to be fucking them over for a goddamn percentage. It works very well. Another difference that struck me was the inclusion of Ripley's daughter. This piece of information was unfortunately cut from the 1986 theatrical release of the film, but survived in the special edition. Ripley inquires about her daughter and learns that Amanda Ripley, later Amanda Ripley McLaren, has grown old and died. It's devastating. Of all the original 1986 cuts to the film, this one, I think, really should have stayed in. It's a powerful scene, and Sigourney Weaver is absolutely brilliant in conveying the rush of complex emotions that are all hitting her at once. And it was intended to be in the movie all along, at least in some form. Here, shockingly, Ripley's daughter is still alive, and she's actually able to contact her. But Amanda isn't exactly thrilled to see her mother again after all this time. She's grown bitter over the years and resented her mother for choosing her career over her family. It's harsh. Maybe a little too harsh. By having Amanda already passed away during Ripley's time in hypersleep, it actually eases the blow of all these years lost. She would never really know how her daughter felt about her during the disappearance, which is perhaps better than getting confirmation. It's too hard of a blow for the Ripley character to go through, I think, and the change in the final version was for the better. Not to mention that it works much better thematically when it comes to her union with Newt, both having lost their families and finding each other. And there are plenty of other smaller differences to be found throughout the 1983 treatment. Gateway Station is Earth Satellite Station Beta. Weyland-Yutani no longer exists. It was bought out by another conglomerate. Ripley's nightmare is more of a flashback to the events from Alien rather than the chestburster nightmare. There's a fair deal of these smaller differences, and some big ones. The most jarring in this section is the entirely new endnote to the Hadley's Hope scenes. We get a much grander punctuation, following the search team as they find Russ and all of the alien eggs begin to open and all hell breaks loose. On paper, it's quite chilling, but possibly too much of a shocker so early in the film. I think Newt seeing her father, with the facehugger attached, then screaming and cutting back to Ripley works perfectly. Also keeping in mind, this whole portion was another cut from the theatrical version. Why this didn't eventually make its way to the film or even the earlier drafts of the screenplay is probably clear enough. None of the original sets from Alien were preserved. Locations we recognize from the first film, such as the interior of the Narcissus and the exterior of the derelict, were recreated for Aliens. To completely rebuild the derelict interior, strictly for the purpose of this one scene, I'm sure would have been too costly altogether and ultimately not crucial to tell this particular story. Up to this point in the treatment, we would have covered about 25 to 30 minutes of the actual film, and so far it's truly incredible just how well it matches up with the fully realized vision. Moving forward, things begin to get a little bit more different. So let's continue, as Ripley joins the Marines on their mission. Deep space. A mountain of steel descends into frame. The mothership, Solaco, a military transport ship. Interior, Solaco. A row of hypersleep capsules open their lids. Figures emerge, groggy men and women. Though not supermen, they look fit and hardened. 10 men and 4 women. Only one of the 14 is the ship's crew. Executive Officer Bishop, ECA assignee. Moving among the somnambulists, bawling orders, is Master Sergeant Apone, the unit leader. The unit hates the way Apone is so alert right away. They hate the whip-crack comments that flow easily as crap table dealer's platter. They love him. They'd follow him into hell. They're about to. Acheron mission roster. ICC personnel. Gorman, project officer. Ripley, project advisor. Transport personnel. Bishop, executive officer. The military unit. Master Sergeant Apone, unit leader. Lance Corporal Hicks, B-team leader. Corporal Lydecker, medtech. Corporal Hudson, comtech. PFC Dietrich, PFC Frost. PFC Wersbasky, PFC Drake, smart gun operator. Corporal Vasquez, smart gun operator, weapons specialist. Sergeant Farrow, dropship pilot. PFC Hay, dropship crewman. Interior, mess hall. Showered and dressed, they assemble. The troops are in fatigue, the ship's captain and exec in casual versions of officers' uniforms. Ripley wears a jumpsuit and her lucky high tops, salvaged from the Narcissus. She studies the others as the talk flows around her, relaxed chatter among familiars as coffee is poured. These guys have been slogging around dirtwater colonies and futuristic brushfire wars together for years. Discipline is noticeably lax. Fatigues are customized, cut off, and emblemized. Apone, taking role, is catcalled and teased, including imitations of his standard opening. All right. This mood will change like lightning in combat. They're tough, jaded, and they know their shit, with a confidence bordering on arrogance. The women of the military unit, Vasquez, Dietrich, Lydecker, and Farrow, are as tough as the men and hold their own in the banter. Ripley is treated with diffidence, as an outsider. Vasquez. What's your name again? Ripley. Yeah. Vasquez turns away. The slight is intentional. Vasquez looks like a tough cookie, even for this lot. What she doesn't know about the portable technologies of death hasn't come out of the lab yet. Vasquez pursues her needling. What are you supposed to be here for? Ripley begins to answer, but gets cut off. Vasquez says the only thing she needs to know about the alien is where it is, so she can blow it away. Ripley hopes she's right. Hudson launches into a monologue about the hardware they're packing. He lists features of ordnance like options on a luxury car. Dropship ordnance like tactical nuclear smart missiles, 100-megawatt X-ray laser cannon, independently targeting particle beam phalanx, and the portable stuff. Cybernetic combat armor, gyro-stabilized phased plasma rifles, grenade launchers, rocket launchers, knives, and sharp sticks. Lieutenant Gorman enters, looking clean-shaven and trim in his crisp uniform. Hey, Pone. 10 Hut? Gorman starts out a general briefing on the mission by making a fool of himself, complimenting the group's record and thanking them for their participation. He comes off as a neophyte, masking a lack of field experience with strict adherence to procedure. Vasquez. Frag bait. Gorman, oblivious to the impression he's making, continues his ramble. Next outlines the knowns. Ripley's warning, the loss of contact with the colony, the abrupt absence of the subspace check-in transmissions, a pulse of data requiring tremendous energy send, therefore limited to once a week to save power. It all sounds a bit thin in the recon department. Apone points out that the colony could simply be having transmitter problems, asks if the ECA might have sent a starship 50 light-years because of somebody's bad dreams. Gorman continues to outline the time frame, dropship loading and pre-flight rundown, field stripping and checking all weapons, review of targets, 10 hours, then sleep, first assembly at 0500, dropship launch at 0730, meeting dismissed. Corridor. Ripley catches up with Bishop. Ripley. On the roster, you're designated as ECA cyborg assignee. You're synthetic human, an android. Bishop. That's correct. Is there a problem? Ripley. Why did they send you? Bishop explains that all corporate operation ships now utilize cyborg captains as standard procedure because of their unique fail-safe qualities. She looks at him, then turns away. Transition. Interior. Cargo lock. Gorman is pointlessly supervising loading. Ripley approaches and demands that Bishop be replaced by a human being. Ash, the company android on the Nostromo, was complicitous in her shipmates' deaths, and tried to murder her. Gorman. Corporate policy is corporate policy. They've been used for years and they haven't failed yet. Transition. Interior. Ready room. Vasquez and Drake are stripping their weapons with precise movements. They barely glance at their work. Vasquez likes the feel of guns, the weight, the authority. She notices Ripley watching her from the door. She points her finger, cocks her thumb, and blows away an imaginary alien. Ripley doesn't think it's funny. Transition. Acheron. From space it looks quite serene, a pearl in the night sky. Solid cloud cover. The Solaco stabilizes its orbit. Interior. Cargo lock. Hicks is using a power loader to move heavy equipment into the dropship. This is an exoskeleton machine with hydraulic arms and legs. The operator straps in behind the safety cage, and when he moves, the massive servo limbs follow, amplifying the power of the movement enormously. The forklift claws can lift tons. Hicks is having problems. Ripley offers to take over. He looks skeptical. She feels like a fifth wheel, wants to help. A lot has changed, but the loaders haven't, and she had lots of hours in them before her officer days. The massive machine moves smoothly under her control. Transition. The team, strapped in, ready to drop. Apone prowls the aisle, checking off gear. In the cockpit, Pharaoh starts the release sequence. Bishop monitors all movements from the Solaco's bridge. Reports that there is no radio response from the colony. The night side of the planet yawns below them, turning slowly toward dawn. The clamps slam back. Exterior, dropship. Screams down through the stratosphere and plunges into the dark turbulence. Interior, cockpit. Pharaoh flies tensely as the ship is buffeted. Hay calls out altitudes and course information. Hudson is calmly talking about his favorite foods to see if he can get Gorman to throw up. The ship lurches, almost waking up Hicks, who's not an early rise. For the combat veterans, this could just as well be a bus ride. Exterior, dropship. The ship emerges from a low cloud ceiling. The landing beacons of the colony are visible. They pass the roaring tower of the terraforming plant. Interior, cockpit. Hay. Stay wide of the atmosphere plant. Convection turbulence. Apone. Hold at 60. Apone calls to Pharaoh from the cockpit doorway. Slow circle of the complex. The team. Apone turns to the troops. All right. A-team, gear up. Let's move. 2 minutes. Somebody wake up Hicks. A clatter of activity as they don their backpacks over their body armor, respirators, helmets with video cameras and flip-down image intensifiers, equipment belts. Vasquez and Drake buckle on harnesses which support the massive smart guns, computer-aimed automatic energy weapons that are the futuristic equivalent of a .50 caliber machine gun. At Ripley's suggestion, they carry a few flamethrowers as well. Hicks asks Ripley if she's going out with them. No fucking way. She's staying with Gorman, who's supervising by remote video from the troop ship. That figures, Drake mutters to Vasquez. Interior, cockpit. POV through canopy. Buildings loom through the low visibility. They seem okay from above, but there is zero activity. Very ominous. Gorman to Pharaoh. Set down by the control block. Immediate dust-off on Sergeant Apone's clear signal. Apone to the group. All right, look sharp. I want clean dispersal this time. 10 seconds. Exterior, Acheron. As the dropship slams down, doors slide back. The troops hit the ground running. The dropship leaps up in a cloud of spray and peels off. Apone orders crackle on the general frequency. A and B teams separate and disperse, finding separate cover. Transition. The colony. The two teams wait, scanning the bleak buildings. A neon sign creaks in the wind. No other movement. Apone. B team hold positions. A team assemble on me at the main lock. They sprint to flat the control block's main entrance. Apone tries the entry switches and emergency overrides, but the steel doors remain closed. Hudson pries off the panel and hotwires it. The doors rumble open. They enter cautiously, Vasquez and her cannon on point. Interior, colony complex. The corridors and rooms are deserted. Emergency lights only. Pools of water cover the floor. An empty corridor recedes into the dim distance. They move forward systematically. Apone brings the second team forward to pace them as a rear guard. As they move through the complex, they find disturbing signs of struggle. Holes in the wall from what appears to be acid splashes and automatic weapons. Burned out rooms. Shattered furniture and doors. Equipment strewn about. Windows are blown out, letting in the elements. Rain-soaked Spartan offices and quarters. There are no bodies, although here and there a spray of dried blood is found. They find a corridor blocked by a barricade of hastily welded steel plate. Signs of struggle are intense. Gaping holes melted through walls and floors. Interior, dropship. Ripley watches via helmet cameras in the monitor bay. Her fears are confirmed. The alien had an incredibly strong acid for blood. At least there were casualties on both sides. Interior, colony complex. The two teams move forward, searching the maze. One wing is completely without power. They switch to helmet lights. Ripley, on dropship, sees the melted evidence of many alien casualties increasing. Her fear builds. She tells Gorman to get his teams out of there. Gorman says there still may be survivors. Ripley is sure there aren't. She recommends they clear off and nuke the whole place. Interior, colony complex. The troopers are on edge now. They want something to shoot at. Movement, someone from Hicks's team calls. A flash of something in a dark side chamber. A darting infrared trace. They flank it. Hicks's men lose the trace. Then something breaks from the shadows behind them. Drake spins, aiming. Hicks knocks his barrel aside, shouting, "Hold fire!" Then more softly, "It's okay. You can come out." He takes off his helmet so as to less resemble an insect. A very dirty and terrified Newt Jordan steps out of hiding. Ripley, on dropship, watches the monitors as they question the little girl with limited success. She will not speak. She is totally traumatized. They ask her if there are any people alive. She shakes her head. Gorman, on dropship, orders the ground teams to work their way to the far side of the complex and stand by. He's going to drop the armored personnel carrier, then join them for an extended search. "Oh boy," Drake says. Ripley joins Gorman at the door of the APC. She wants to go. Exterior, dropship. It settles next to the assembled men in the debris of an exploded factory building. The APC is lowered by a massive hydraulic arm, operated from the cargo lock by Hay. It is a larger version of the colony tractors with servogun turrets and, on the front, crab-like manipulator arms. Interior, APC. The unit boards. Inside, a monitor bay for directing operations. Apone takes the driver's seat and the vehicle rolls forward. Behind them, the dropship again dusts off, hovering as the boom-arm retracts. Gorman directs them to make for the terraforming plant. Survivors may have taken refuge there. Interior, dropship. Hay stands at the boom controls in the still-open cargo lock. Behind him, the massive arm rises slowly. From among the rams and hoses, a shape emerges. Something not of the ship, but blending biomechanically with its structure. Hay senses it, turns. An impression of drooling jaws and a terrifying eyeless head. There is no time to scream. Cockpit. Farrow, the pilot, unaware of Hay's situation. The cargo lock door clangs shut as the dropship banks, continues circling. Transition. Interior, APC, as it tears across the tortured landscape. Ripley has taken charge of Newt, getting her some warm clothes and hot chocolate from the dispenser. She stops Gorman's clumsy attempts to question her. Newt wordlessly puts her arms around Ripley's neck and starts to cry. Ripley hesitates. She awkwardly returns the embrace. Only Hicks seems to note the tender moment as the others are heatedly discussing what they have seen. Ripley's ignored, unacknowledged. Hicks hands her a cup of coffee. He's beginning to realize a hint of her ordeal on the Nostromo. As they approach the base of the vast structure, they are confronted by a bizarre sight. POV, alien structure. Among the refinery-like lattice of pipe and conduits, something new and not of human design has been added. It is a structure of some sort, extending from and crudely imitating the complex of plumbing, but made of some strange encrusted substance. It vaguely resembles the chambered nests of swallows on a much larger scale. It attenuates so gradually into the original hardware that it's hard to see where one ends and the other begins. The alien structure seems to extend far back into the complex of machinery. The plant thrums loudly, its functioning seemingly not impaired. Interior, APC. Gorman, Ripley, and Newt remain at the monitor as Apone leads his team off the ship and into the structure. Interior, alien structure. Pitch dark and hot. The team casts their flashlights along the halls. Their lights reveal a biomechanical lattice, convoluted like the marrow of some vast bone. The air is thick with steam. Water drips and trickles. They examine the wall material. The place seems almost alive. Ripley watches in horror as the monitors show the structure. Detritus from the colony, furniture, rocks, wiring, and human bones, skulls. All fused with some epoxy-like substance, some sort of excreted resin. Interior, alien structure. Apone deploys Hicks's team as a rear guard once more, entering a large chamber. Lights flare. The chatter is low and tense. Suddenly, Hicks's team faces a wall of living horror. The colonists have been brought here and entombed alive. Cocoons protrude from the niches and interstices of the structure. The cocoon material is the same translucent epoxy. The bodies are frozen in carelessly twisted positions. Macabre images of frozen agony. Many are desiccated, skeletal. Rib cages burst outward, as if exploded from within. Then a faint moaning, weeping, shrill cries, sudden sobs. A chorus of the damned. They're not all dead. Paralyzed, brought here, entombed in living death as hosts for the embryos growing within them. Apone draws closer, overcoming his revulsion. Kill me. A choked whisper beckons him. Eyelids flutter. The woman's mouth moves, but no more sound issues. Interior, APC. Ripley watches the screen, white-knuckled. Gorman turns away. The sound of retching comes over the general frequency. Interior, cocoon room. Apone turns to his team. Apone. Flamethrower. Someone hands him the weapon. Suddenly, the woman's chest explodes with a gout of blood. A small, fanged head emerges, hisses. Apone pulls the trigger. Then the other troopers carrying flamethrowers open fire, an orgy of purging flames. The cocoons vanish in the shimmering heat. A shrill screeching begins, like the sound of madness, or a siren made from fingernails on blackboards. The twisted contours of the structure come alive. From the niches in the walls, floor, ceiling, aliens emerge, lots of them, becoming visible only as they move. We see it. The troopers don't. Smoke fills the room, cutting visibility to less than 2 meters. Movement, someone shouts. Then, a cappella. Movement! Movement! A scream, cut short. Apone shouts, snapping down his image converter. Apone. Infrared, fall back. Tall, skeletal figures loom suddenly out of the smoke, striking like lightning. Interior, APC. Gorman shouts into his mic. Gorman. Get out of there, Apone! A bright flash/bang as somebody fires. A gout of yellow acid slashes across Frost's face. He screams, dying. Ripley watches the monitor labeled Frost go black. His bio readouts flatten. It is a battle of phantoms. The aliens are shimmering infrared silhouettes on the screen. Interior, cocoon room. More firing. Flash crack of the smart gun. Vasquez scoring points in her own private video game. Automatics open up, glaring in the smoke. More screaming. Human screaming. A voice. Lydecker, Drake's hit. Apone. Watch your fire, dammit. Interior, APC. Ripley sees smoke welling out of the structure and flashes of fire rise and fall like a welder's arc. The screens and biomonitors keep score. Drake, Worzbowski, Lydecker, then Apone. All of them go flatline. Gorman. Get out of there! Fall back! Ripley. Too late. They're cut off. She takes a very deep breath, then jumps into the driver's seat of the APC. Gorman panics. She ignores him. The APC lurches forward. She may not be able to operate the weapons, but she can damn sure drive a tractor. Gorman is frozen. Interior, alien structure. The APC roars into the smoky structure, tearing away outcroppings of the alien incrustation. Ripley hits the lights. Strobe. Siren. Explosions. Interior, APC. Suddenly something lands on the roof with a metallic thump. An alien arm arcs down, smashing the windshield in front of her. Newt screams. Glistening, hideous jaws lunge inside. Ripley recoils. Face to face once again with the same mind-numbing horror, she loses control of the vehicle. The alien's mouth opens. Wham! The creature is slammed sideways by a plasma burst from smart gun fire beyond the APC. Acid sprays. Hits the seat beside Ripley. Exterior, APC. Hicks, smart gun still armed, runs up to the APC. Dietrich and Hudson drag an inert Apone out of the smoke. Vasquez lays down a ferocious cover fire. Gorman gets the door open. They leap in, hauling Apone and Vasquez with her bulky rig. Interior, APC. Ripley hits reverse. Newt hasn't stopped screaming. Another alien lunges in as the door is closing. Hicks blasts it. The door closes. The APC roars backward out of the complex. It is gouged and smoking from the acid spray. Hicks examines Apone. Under a hole punched through the body armor, he finds a single purple puncture wound. Bloodless. He seems to be alive, but paralyzed. Transition. Interior, APC. When they reach a safe distance, Gorman orders the APC's cannon aimed at the alien nest. Hicks stops him. At the center of the plant is a controlled fusion reactor. Possible thermonuclear bomb if it is damaged. Gorman calls in the dropship. They'll evacuate and nuke the place from the air. Interior, dropship. Vero turns on her final approach, descending. She calls for Hay on the intercom. No answer. She taps her mic, flips the switch again. When the hatch bangs open behind her, she turns. It is not her co-pilot. Interior, APC. The ground team, now only Ripley, Gorman, Vasquez, Hudson, and Dietrich, watches as the hovering dropship veers wildly, side-slipping at high speed into the terraforming complex. A tremendous explosion. Their hopes of getting off the planet quickly vanish into a fireball. Transition. The team decides to return to the main colony and set up a base of operations at the control block. They park the APC across the main doors, guns aimed outward. They drag equipment to the second-floor deck with its control tower-like windows. Guns are set up with a clear field of fire across the open plain. Access to the control block from within the complex is put under surveillance by portable sentry cameras. The corridors are mined. Transition. Interior, Solaco. Bishop tells them that reorbiting, powering up, and landing will take 6 hours. Gorman, down below, loses his temper. Bishop remains unruffled. Transition. Main colony. They assess their situation. The loss of the ship cuts their firepower virtually to hand weapons. Ammunition must be conserved. Manpower has been halved. Ripley vents her disgust. She's watched the operation disintegrate steadily into the same sort of nightmare she experienced before. Déjà vu with teeth. She points out that there may well be one of the creatures for every captured colonists. Dozens, certainly. Probably more. Gorman is apologetic since he got her involved. He subsides into a self-absorbed stupor. The team realizes that in action, his ability to command will be negligible. Transition. Acheron. Night has settled. Blackness and rain. The crew in a state of siege. Vasquez and Dietrich prowl the observation deck, searching the ground with their image intensifiers. Gorman watches the sentry monitors, though his eyes seem glazed. Hudson is with a pwn who is conscious but barely able to talk or move. Hudson is using the opportunity to tell him everything he always wanted to say, but didn't for fear of broken teeth. It would be at this point in Cameron's treatment where some of the trims from the September 8th version take place. The executive criticisms of how it handles the exposition are fair enough, but there's some interesting stuff. Thankfully, the cuts are still partially available through the Rinsler book, and I think they're worth taking a look at. From The Making of Aliens. Hicks enters with a stack of data cartridges in a plastic bag. Ripley plays the first tape. It turns out to be a video log recorded by a haggard-looking middle-aged woman, Dr. Skotak, who identifies herself as the colony's Xenobiologist. She describes the subsequent demolition of the alien ship, the mounting panic as the nature of the alien's life cycle becomes apparent. Big Egg hatches into Facehugger. Facehugger inserts small egg or embryo into host. Embryo emerges as chestburster, or what Skotak calls the larval stage. The larva molts, grows rapidly, becoming the adult. The adult in turn paralyzes new hosts, cocoons them, and thus replicates itself. Dr. Skotak also mentions a form we haven't seen yet, what she calls a drone, a worker, a smaller, less vicious adult form. These have been seen removing aliens' bodies after a fight. Neither of these adult types can account for the thousands of meter-high eggs found in the ship, she says. There must be another form. She sketches a large empty box at the top of the diagram. Something no one has seen. Skotak is convinced that the eggs were being transported by the large alien as some sort of bioweapon in an ancient war that humans know nothing of. Driven by a blind, voracious need to reproduce, growing exponentially. They could decimate the population of an entire world in a few months. She does doubt, though, that the creatures themselves are intelligent. The Queen would impose order and organization to keep mindless warriors from attacking each other. But that does not constitute power of reason. Vasquez's voice comes over the intercom. She's been listening in. Bullshit, man. Those things are intelligent. They kicked our ass in an ambush. A planned ambush. This scene with the Xenobiologist probably best resembles the medlab scene from the final film, where the possibility of something we haven't seen yet, the Queen, is discussed. On one hand, you could understand the desire to keep the story moving forward instead of stopping short to discuss what most viewers would have already picked up on regarding the alien life cycle. On the other hand, it prepares us for the new additions, including the Alien Queen and a smaller type of alien referred to as the drone, both of which we see later in this treatment. One very important detail here that seems to exist absolutely nowhere else and only mentioned in passing is that the colonists took actions to demolish the derelict ship. That's a point of contention put to rest by this detail. Was the derelict destroyed by the atmosphere processor explosion at the end? Was it near or far enough to be affected but still remain intact, as we've actually seen in the Dark Horse comics? The answer here is that it was already destroyed before the Marines even came in. Sorry, future Alien writers, there's no going back to that well. Regardless of how you may feel about these details, or how such a scene may have played out at the time, it's admittedly become kind of a cliched type of scene these days. The main characters view a diary of one of the doomed souls from a previous encounter with a threat, who conveniently takes out the time to lay out important plot details which will become relevant later on. We've seen it a million times in the 35-plus years since the release of Aliens, and I think this is a film above that kind of clunky exposition. Funnily enough, though, the Xenobiologist is mentioned in a later scene here, when Ripley discusses the possibility of countering or preventing the paralyzing venom from the xenomorph. For anyone reading this official final treatment, the reference would be a mystery. But plenty more mysteries are to be unfolded ahead. Let's continue. Ripley and Hicks use the base's existing video cameras to search for a possible shuttle-type ship. Most colonies use one or two for suborbital hops to service the network of atmosphere processors. They find the hangar, but it seems to have been the site of intense fighting. There is a shuttle there, but it's burned out. Another similar berth nearby is empty. The doors beyond are open. Hicks exits to scout the area. Transition. Interior, control block. Ripley, wearing a sidearm now, sits beside Newt, watching her sleep. As the crew rests, they are suddenly interrupted by a glare of orange light. Ripley rushes over to the others. A 10-story jet of fire is visible leaping from the base machinery of the terraforming planet. The team looks out at the blaze. Hicks. Emergency venting. He sets up the central computer to read out the plant's status. We got problems. The crash of the dropship has damaged the heat exchanger system. Loss of coolant. Gradual, irreversible overheating. System failure in about 6 hours. Followed within about 1/10 second by a thermonuclear explosion on the order of 20 megatons. Vasquez stomps in. Vasquez. That's it. We're taking the APC and getting out of here. Gorman. I'm in command here. Vasquez. You're barely in command of your bladder. Newt surprises them by appearing at Ripley's elbow and asking quietly if they're leaving. The first words she's spoken. Ripley. I think so. Newt. Good, because they'll come back. Ripley assures her that nothing can get close without them seeing it. Newt points at the distant power plant. Newt. They use the tunnels, the ones between here and there. I know the maze best. That's why they didn't catch me. Suddenly, a splintering crash nearby. Hudson shouts at something. It becomes a scream. Hicks looks in, hesitates, then seals the door. A moment later, something slams against the far side, buckling it. They abandon their useless battlements. Retreat. Dietrich kills the lights. The door splinters open. The team opens fire. In the strobe-like glare of the energy weapons, they see flashes of the aliens. Acid flies, dissolving the deck in clouds of vapor. The nightmarish figures come forward. They fall. A floor grate flies open. Glistening figures emerge. Ripley grabs Newt, picks up a flamethrower, and runs. The team crowds into a lift. The doors start to close. Too slow. They watch helplessly as the creatures advance. An alien gets its hand between the doors as they come together. The doors pop back open. Hicks and Vasquez blast it at point-blank range. It screeches, falling back. Acid slices between the closing doors, across Hicks's armored chest plate. Hicks's fingers race with the clasps as the stuff eats its way toward his skin. He shucks out the armor like a madman, dropping the smoking shell to the floor. The acrid fumes fill the air, searing eyes and lungs. The lift stops. The doors part, and the corridor is empty. The team moves out. Vasquez tosses a grenade into the lift and sends it back up. They approach the main entry doors, beyond which the APC waits. Hicks and Vasquez flank the doors, clutching grenades. As Gorman and Dietrich stand with rifles aimed, Hicks slaps the control button. The inner doors rumble back. The wind blasts in through the other doors. The tractor is untouched, just beyond. The way seems clear. Hicks, then Vasquez, edge forward. The entry lock beyond the inner doors is deserted. Hicks checks the ledges above with his light, then waves the others forward. Exterior, the APC. They sprint toward it. Dietrich arrives first, whips open the side door. A figure lunges from within, and Dietrich is gone. From the darkness, dark shapes emerge. Lightning glares. Ripley staggers back. Hicks and Vasquez open fire. The APC explodes from the concentrated fire. Gorman, in a panic, is closing the doors behind them. Ripley scoops up Newt as they sprint for it. Hicks tosses his backpack between the massive doors. It crunches, but stops them. Ripley, Newt, Vasquez squeeze through. Hicks leaps through. Kicks the pack out. The doors clang together just as a burning figure impacts on the far side. Interior, colony complex. Ripley has to stop Vasquez from pulping Gorman. Vasquez unbuckles and drops her smart gun to the deck. Empty. Ripley asks Newt if she knows a hiding place they can stay in for a while. The little girl leads them into the air shafts. She guides them to a small steel chamber with a flooded floor. They hunker down in the darkness and wait. They are out of contact with Bishop, having left their communications gear in the control block. He is to rendezvous at the colony landing field at 0130 hours, a little over an hour. Eerily, they hear a faint voice coming over the headsets. A whisper. It's Hudson. Hicks asks for his position. Hudson explains haltingly that he's not sure. He woke up in a dark chamber. Can't move. He's in one of those cocoons they saw. Ripley asks what he can see. Hudson describes a chamber constructed by the aliens near the one they burned. A chamber whose floor is covered by egg-like things. There are lots of creatures around, different sizes, and a huge one. He says they have a ship down there, the one from the colony. Hudson tells Hicks that he did the right thing when he sealed the door. He and Apone couldn't have made it. He starts to weaken, then screams hoarsely. Ripley clicks off her headset. She tells Hicks what she remembers from the Xenobiologist's notes. The poison in the alien's sting is similar to some nerve gases used in combat. Don't their field first aid kits contain ampules of atropine, a nerve gas counteragent? Hicks asks Vasquez for her first aid kit. Inside are emergency ampules of morphine, benzodrine, atropine, and others. They are the type you jab into a major muscle and squeeze. She tosses the ampules and a roll of surgical tape into one jumpsuit pocket. Hicks raises an eyebrow, but doesn't comment. He lights a cigarette, offers her one. She declines. Bad for your health. Smiles. Hicks wants to know why Ripley came on this one. She knew what the score was. She has a hard time answering. Ripley. Fear, I guess. The fear that no matter where I go, somehow these things would get there, some ship would bring one back or something. I had to see them wiped out or spend my life looking over my shoulder. Maybe there's more to it now. It's like an obsession. Hicks nods. Hicks. Sometimes the guys who've seen the worst action in combat are the first ones to re-up. He smiles. Can't do it next time, though. You've got responsibilities now. Ripley doesn't get it. He nods at Newt, curled up under her arm. She holds the child tighter. Transition. The team moving through the tunnels again, guided by the 6-year-old maze ace. Hicks keeps an eye on his chronometer. They move toward each junction cautiously. Ripley uses the flamethrower around corners. Tension builds. A flattened duct they have to crawl through. They round a corner. Ripley's light shows movement ahead. Glinting, obscene forms moving toward them. They try to crawl back, jammed together in the narrow shaft. A grating tear opens behind them. A deadly silhouette batters through, cutting them off. Vasquez uses her flamethrower. It sputters. Vasquez. Losing fuel. Hicks. Get behind me, Newt. The child scurries around him. He blasts into the duct wall point blank with his plasma gun, using it like a cutting torch. Molten metal spatters him. Between eye-searing bursts of flame, Ripley sees the horrible faces closing in. Hicks's gun clicks empty. He kicks it at the cherry-hot metal. It folds aside. Vasquez's flamethrower goes dry. Vasquez. That's it. Hicks guides Newt through the searing hole, follows her, pulls Ripley out by the feet as her flamethrower sputters out. Vasquez is trapped. She can't get by Gorman, who's frozen. She punches him. Vasquez. Move, sucker! Too late. She feels the stinger slam under her chest plate, pulls the pin on 2 grenades. With her last strength, hands one to Gorman. She whispers to the alien as it crawls over her. Vasquez. Happy birthday. The grenade goes. Ripley, Hicks, and Newt run out as the wall explodes into dust behind them. A delirious dash now, hysterical, without semblance of caution. The corridors unreel dizzily. They leap through a blast hole in the outer wall. Sprint for the landing pad. See the plant in the distance is roaring, its pipes red hot. Lightning crashes around it as the tremendous forces unleash a man-made storm. The 3 tiny figures are buffeted by gale winds as they approach the landing strobes. Ripley carries the exhausted child. Hicks checks his watch. Hicks. We're late. Voice. Bishop to landing party. Ripley yells into her headset. Ripley. Where are you? Bishop. Voiceover. Just above you. Interior, Solaco. Inside the quiet, comfortable cockpit, Bishop looks out. He can see the huddled figures near the landing light, looking upward. Bishop. Listen, Ripley, I just got some bad news. Ripley. Voiceover. Save it. Get us out of here. Bishop. Well, that's it, you see. There's a problem. The ship's computer has been accessing the colony's central processor and collating your own progress. It seems to have concluded the risk of contaminating other inhabited worlds is too great. It won't allow me to land. Some sort of quarantine command override. I hadn't heard of it, but there you have it. Ripley. Voiceover. Bishop, land the ship. Bishop. Look, I'm really very sorry. A human being could act with self-determination, do what one thinks best on one's own judgment, and so on. I can't. I guess you were right about me all along, weren't you, Ripley? Ripley. Voiceover. That's a very comforting thought, Bishop. Now land the motherfucking ship. Bishop. Sorry, I can't. Look, I have to get going. Ripley. Bishop! The big transport ship banks, engines firing, and is quickly lost in the storm. Ripley screams, enraged. She fires her pistol after the departing craft. Hicks. Save it. They turn to look at the plant, which has become a roaring, infernal engine. Lightning zaps around its superstructure, illuminating up the weird landscape. Ripley looks at her watch, starts walking toward the roaring complex. Hicks. Where are you going? Ripley. What choice do we have? Let's try to find the shuttlecraft. From the section of the treatment when Ripley joins the mission, things begin to look gradually less similar from what is seen in the final film. A lot of the character names remain the same, and those who are different we can safely guess as to who they would become. Although a Dietrich character does exist in this version, it seems that the character we know was originally named Lydecker. This surname would eventually be used for the assistant manager of the Hadley's Hope colony in the final film. We have PFC Hay, who would become Spunkmeyer. A good change, I think. I don't think Hay is all that great of a character name. Things could get confusing. And you'll notice that his death occurs much earlier, even before all hell breaks loose in the hive. Maybe it works better after the fact, and off-screen, as presented in the final film. There are certainly familiar moments throughout, in slightly different contexts, such as the boasting from the Marines. Vasquez only needing to know one thing, where they are. Hudson listing their arsenal, right down to the sharp sticks. The tense search of the colony is fairly similar, though the APC isn't introduced until a little later. Here they land in the dropship, and it has all their gear. Newt is found in a similar way as in the final film, but Ripley isn't present. Rather, she's been staying safely aboard the ship this whole time. But the discovery of this little girl seems to be Ripley's motivation to set foot on the planet. From then on, the bond begins to form, but Newt actually remains silent for much, much longer before finally speaking. We get beats that are recognizable enough, but after the dropship crash, it almost feels like an entirely different movie. There's a lot here that doesn't even exist in the final film in any way, shape, or form. There's some interesting stuff, though. Hudson being captured and able to communicate with the other Marines, and letting them know what he sees inside the hive, is a very unnerving moment. Since the APC isn't destroyed, we get a pretty good moment where an alien jumps out from inside, which I think if it did exist, would have been a nice, shocking scene. I also like the little maneuver Vasquez pulls by throwing the grenade into the lift and sending it up to the aliens. We also get kind of a cheesy line from the character, "Happy Birthday," which was perhaps best left out. Also a moment where Ripley more or less explicitly communicates her drive and all of her character motivations. Hicks also points out the importance of her newly budding connection to Newt. Probably all a little too on the nose, probably all best left out. The audience is smart enough to pick up on this, without it all being spelled out for us. Altogether, things move pretty fast once they get back to the complex. There's actually not too much room to breathe. These were some of the better ways Cameron would flesh out the story by giving the characters more of a sense that they could control the situation and hold off the aliens. That is, until things go terribly wrong with the atmosphere processor and the infiltration of the creatures. And since we don't have the Burt character to shake things up, the facehugger attack in the infirmary is completely absent. It's actually very surprising that this scene wasn't pitched to begin with, since it's such an incredible standout. The Bishop character is handled quite differently too. From his introduction onwards, he has almost this opposite kind of effect to Burke. We begin mistrusting him, as Ripley does, but he's slowly revealed to be a character we like and can get behind. While Bishop isn't necessarily an evil company spy such as Ash, he still proves to be a hindrance here. He ends up having an Asimovian conflict and can't save our characters when they need him the most. He's at least apologetic for that. Moving forward into the finale, we have different motivations for Ripley going into the alien hive. It's not because Newt has been captured, but because there's a ship in there, and it's the only chance for these characters to escape. It also seems, as we'll see, to have an ominous presence, played out by the Queen, commanding her brood to load eggs into it. Things inside the hive get quite a bit different from what's present in the final version, though things eventually turn around and we get the familiar standout power loader fight between Ripley and the Queen at the end of the film. Let's see what other surprises the 1983 treatment has in store. This is the stunning conclusion of Alien 2. Interior Colony Complex. The complex looms above the three. Deep in the bowels, some of the metal is red hot. Steam hisses back as the rain hits. The ground is trembling. Lightning snaps like a strobe. Couplings groan. The machinery creaks and heaves. Ripley walks toward the alien structure into the main opening, carrying Newt. Interior, alien structure. She whispers to the child. Ripley, keep your eyes closed, baby. From the dark, nightmarish living shapes emerge and move toward them. Ripley hands Hicks a small object. 3 ampules taped together, their needle ends looking like a 3-pronged plug. Atropine, morphine, benzodrine. Hicks. Oh man, there's gotta be a better way. A shadowy wall of aliens beyond. Ripley. Now! Ripley stabs at her thigh, hard, squeezing. Inhuman objects seize them. Ripley stares trembling into the face of the ultimate horror. Newt's screaming echoes as the image fades. Transition. Interior. Egg chamber. Ripley awakens, struggles to move. A drone is excreting cocoon material over her, anchoring her body to the wall of death. The drone is a small, albino version of the alien creature. Where the warrior has a set of striking teeth within its head, the drone has an excreting probe, like an organic stucco gun. The air is thick with steam. Figures move back and forth, carrying eggs one way, returning empty. Evacuation. The taller silhouettes of warriors can be seen, moving with nightmarish grace. Ripley sees Hicks nearby, and Newt, looking like figures in an obscene fresco. Drones hover over them as well. She whispers to Hicks, who responds weakly. Ripley, can you move? Hicks, not much. See the ship? Ripley turns her head. Rotating landing lights lead her eyes to its outline in the mist. Sweat pours off her. She strains to move her arm, ripping at the cocoon fabric. Her fingers slip under her tunic. Grace contorted with effort. Panting, she cries out in suppressed panic. A warrior alien hulks over her. The bony armor over its belly parts wetly. A shape emerges, glistening, prehensile, like a segmented tongue. It ends in a tapered black spine. An egg injector. Her fingers close on the butt of her pistol tucked inside her jumpsuit. The injector moves toward her, gleaming. Ripley fires through the cocoon wall straight into the alien's belly. It screeches and leaps back. Ripley tears open the cocoon, cutting frantically with a belt knife. She staggers toward Hicks. He is screaming. Hicks, get Newt. An ear-splitting roar comes from the self-destructing machinery above as Ripley staggers to the unconscious girl. As she cuts her free, Ripley sees for the first time the source of the eggs. The queen alien. What's bigger, meaner, more terrifying than an alien? Its mother. The shiny black body swells at the base into a bloated, translucent egg sac. Enormous, disproportionate, like that of a termite queen. A pulsating sausage 10 meters long, filled with gestating eggs and intestine-like tubules. The powerful, multi-limbed body straddles a throne of its own swollen abdomen. The head is just human enough to be horrifying. Interior, egg chamber. Ripley pulls a grenade from her belt, pulls the activator and throws. It rolls under the egg sac, explodes. The egg sac rips open, spraying matter. A scream like a steam whistle. The aliens go berserk, screeching and acid explosions in the swirling mist. Ripley carries the inert child over to Hicks. Hicks. Too late for me. Get going. He pauses, then slips his pistol into view. It'll be all right. She hesitates. Go. Ripley backs away, stumbles toward the ship. Interior, colony shuttle ship. Ripley enters by an emergency airlock, goes to the cockpit, drops Newt in a seat, seals the door, examines the control. Hits switches. Airtight doors slam throughout the ship. Another switch. The engines roar white light, searing the egg chamber, the throne room. The ship lifts. Another switch. Huge bolts slam back. The cargo module containing the eggs is jettisoned from the spine of the ship. It crashes back into the inferno below. The ship tears through the encrusted structure as it lifts out of the complex. Fire jets roar from vents among glowing machinery. Now red-hot iron tombs. The air vibrates with shock waves. Paint blisters on the ship as it moves forward, landing gear retracting. Explosions. Ripley hits the main engines, slams back in her seat. Ship vaults forward, everything shakes in a blur. When it clears, she is climbing out of the cloud later into the stratosphere. Below her, the clouds light up from horizon to horizon. Sun-white light bursts into the night sky. Transition. Exterior. Colony shuttle ship. In orbit. The scorched craft settles on its hydraulic legs in the cavernous cargo bay of the Solaco. Behind it, the lock door slides shut, cutting off the stars, leaving a deep gloom. Interior. Colony shuttle ship. Ripley collapses in the seat. As her fingers slide off the controls, she seems to deflate. She forces herself up, picks up Newt, still comatose. Checks her pistol, hits the door button. She moves warily down the short corridor to the airlock, opens the doors. She staggers down the landing ramp to the deck of the mothership and crumbles to her knees. Interior, Solaco. Ripley looks up to see Bishop standing before her, holding a power rifle in his hands. Bishop, are you all right? Ripley, what do you care? Bishop, now that you're here, the quarantine order has been superseded. I'm happy to have you aboard. Now, I have to seal this shuttle and jettison it. Excuse me. He passes her, climbing the ramp between two huge landing legs. I'm glad you made it. Really, I am. I hope you can understand. I just do what I'm told. It's all in the program, you see. Ripley. Suck air, Bishop. Behind Bishop, the huge, scorched black hydraulics begin to move. A large, shining shape drops silently to the walkway. Bishop looks down as a drop of acid splashes on the deck by his shoe. He turns. The alien queen hisses, dripping acid and rage. Its body ends in torn gristle where the egg sac was torn away. Its huge thighs flex, glistening as it rises. One blurred swipe flings Bishop away in a spray of milky android blood. The rifle clatters away. Ripley looks up as the thing advances, checks around desperately. The gun. Too far. Her eyes riveted on the creature, she pushes Newt away. Holding her jacket, she slips the little girl over the edge of a short drop-off, letting her slip gently down among some hydraulic mechanisms. The Queen looks down at the child's form. Ripley shouts hoarsely, "Here!" She moves in front of it. The creature's attention returns to Ripley. Without warning, it moves for her like lightning. Its claws rake her jacket as she turns and runs. Storage bay. Ripley clears the door to a storage bay at full run, slapping the close command button. The Queen hits the door. A half-inch of steel plate buckles under the impact. In the darkness, Ripley crosses the room. The door buckles further. Squeal of rending steel. The alien hits again. Ripley fumbles with a safety harness. Crash! Something massive rises into frame. Ripley in the power loader. Hydraulics whine. The magnetic footplates clang as she steps forward. Crash! The alien steps back to charge the door again. Then it opens. Ripley steps out wearing 2 tons of hardened steel. The battle is joined. Ripley and the alien Queen face each other. The alien attacks. Ripley parries with swipes from the massive forklift claws. They lock in a death embrace. Ripley closes the forks, crushing 2 of the alien's limbs. It lashes and writhes with incredible fury, coming within inches of Ripley's exposed body. The hind legs rip at her. The striking teeth extend almost a meter. Ripley ducks, and they slam into the seat cushion behind her head. She spins, slamming the creature against a wall of machinery. Yellow acid foams down the hydraulic arms toward Ripley as she raises the Queen off the ground. It tears at the hydraulic hoses. Purple hydraulic fluid sprays wildly about. The arms lock. Ripley stands at the lip of a vertical loading lock, a rectangular pit. She steps off the edge. They crash together 6 meters below, twisted together in the wreckage. Loading lock. The alien shrieks. Its blood flows around the lower door, eats through. Air begins escaping. Ripley unbuckles, claws her way up a service ladder to the controls. Hits the outer door switch. Emergency override. Below Ripley, an open pit of stars appears as the door slides open. She is buffeted by a hurricane of air howling past her into space. The alien claws up toward her, seizes one ankle. The power loader tumbles down, the Queen within its grasp. The alien, clutching one of Ripley's sneakers, plummets into the depths of space. Ripley fights the airstream, crawls over the lip. She releases the override. Ripley collapses, gasping, as the upper door slides closed and the air eddies and settles. She moves over the huge hold, leans in and picks up the grease-smeared Newt. She carries the child past the remains of Bishop lying in a puddle of curdled milk, tubing strewn out. He speaks with a hissing gurgle. "Bishop, for a human being, you're really quite remarkable." Ripley looks down. Bishop winks. Ripley, thanks. Ripley walks down the corridor. Newt stirs in her arms. Newt. Mommy. Mommy? Ripley. Right here, honey. Right here. Fade out. And that was Alien 2. As the years progressed, so did the story. The Roman numeral 2 was eventually dropped, becoming Aliens, and standing on its own in addition to being the follow-up to Ripley's story. Drafts of a full screenplay were written, Cameron further shaped the film and took helm of the production. The rest is history. Hindsight surely is 20/20 for us, looking back on it now and the improvements that could be and were made to Cameron's vision. Still, I wouldn't hesitate for a moment to say that this treatment is an incredible feat all on its own. It's truly good enough of a treatment that if they wanted to film it the day after handing it in, they could have, and it still would have been an excellent film. This version is almost like looking into an alternate universe, seeing what the sequel may have been like without the further fleshing out that Cameron painstakingly provided. It's full of treasures and curiosities. In the last section, what we see in the hive is truly fascinating. Cameron could have added even more to the alien life cycle than the egg-laying queen. The smaller albino drones that are the workers who arrange the eggs and cocoon the colonists and gather their dead. The entirely new aspect to the adult warrior xenomorph, how it can open up its belly and impregnate a host without the need of a facehugger. There's a bizarre, morbid symmetry to that, which I suppose isn't all that more far-fetched than the concept of egg morphing from the original film. And there's the reveal that these creatures could have much more intelligence than just large bugs. An insidious operation to evacuate and bring eggs off of LV-426 to find more hosts. Maybe all of this could have worked in the final film, maybe not. But there's so much more under the surface of the film we know, and different possibilities that could have been explored. This is no doubt a large part of why I've been so excited about being involved with the Aliens Expanded documentary. I've been mentioning it this month as its campaign has been underway. This is something I'm really passionate about seeing come to realization. I think this is going to be a documentary that explores a film unlike what's ever been done before. I truly believe there's always something new to discover about this movie and the world it has created. If you're watching this video on the date of upload, then this is actually the last day of the campaign, October 3rd. There's still precious time to sign up and reserve your copy, get all the goodies like your name in the credits and all the extra swag. So there's still some time, but if you're watching this beyond that, the Aliens Expanded website does have a mailing list, so you may still have a future opportunity at a later date. Either way, I'll leave a link below if you're interested. If you've watched this entire video, if you're here at the end, then I have a feeling you just may be interested in knowing as much about aliens as possible. Well, you're in good company. Now that we're at the end, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Is there anything from this treatment, absent from the final film, that you wish actually made its way in? Are there any differences that you prefer? I'm really curious to know, so please leave a comment down below. And as always, I'd like to thank you very much for watching today. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave it a like, and be sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up with future videos. My very special thanks goes out to Brandon James, Grizz4756, Ronnie Jensen, and Xeno Shadowmorph, Queen Tiers of the Patreon Hive. Thank you to Gregory Ford and John Griggs. These are the Hive's Praetorians. Very, very special thanks goes out to Lady Anne in the Ellen Ripley Tier of Excellence. And in the role of Weyland-Yutani executives, Michael Cole, Nicholas Butta, and Wesley A. Weaver Jr. Thank you all so very much. Longer videos are always risky, especially with film footage involved and YouTube's copyright bots always lurking in the shadows. Your support means the world to me and allows me to explore the topics I find genuinely interesting. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you again soon for more. In the meantime, you can catch up with Alien Theory over social media. Follow @alien_theory on Twitter and @alientheoryyt on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.